Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we're discussing the Lord Commander Roboute Guilliman and his father, the God Emperor of mankind. As we begin to ask what's next, where is the narrative on the Emperor's godhood going to go? Will Guilliman begin to harness faith in his father upon the battlefield? General spoiler warning to begin, as the events we're discussing today are from across the Warhammer 40k universe. As always, I really recommend you read the stories for yourself first without spoilers, as that's the best way to enjoy the lore for yourself. So you have been warned, and with that said, let's just jump straight in. Well, I think it's safe to say now 10th edition has arrived. The next step forward in the galaxy has begun, with the arrival of the rest of Hive Fleet Leviathan. The Tyranids are a legitimate threat. With their incursion to the west, they could well threaten the throne world itself. And I wouldn't be surprised to see some lasting impacts on the western edge of the galaxy as we know it. However, much like with the Necrons in 9th edition, and the return of the Silent King, I can't help but wonder if the narrative will ultimately return to the age-old war against chaos. And considering Abaddon's recent major victory, I think it's surely an odds-on certainty. When it comes to the war against chaos, the Imperium's battle to deny the ruinous powers, there remains no more important figure than the God Emperor of mankind. And we've really been left on a cliffhanger of sorts since the end of the Dark Imperium trilogy, with the final installment, Dark Imperium Godblight by Guy Haley. Now, throughout the entire trilogy, we witness the returned Lord Commander Roboute Guilliman attempting to come to terms with this new Imperium around him. The long-forgotten imperial truth, and the now dominating ecclesiarchy, the worship of his father as a god. Guilliman, clearly opposed to this notion, could only really fight one battle at a time. And to change the Imperium, he first had to try and save it. So, begrudgingly, Guilliman has had to accept this new Imperium around him, needing the power and backing of the ecclesiarchy to even attempt to stem the tides of chaos. And stem them he did, or at the very least punch the ruinous powers right back, managing to get Imperium Sanctus back to some measure of stability, ending by defeating Mortarion within the Plague Wars of Ultramar. However, it's undoubted Guilliman's feelings on the Emperor became conflicted throughout his journey, beginning with an out-and-out denial of his father's divinity, highlighting the facts that he alone had actually spoken to him, to then reading the fabled Latitio Divinatus, essentially the very foundation of the Imperial cult. And let's be clear here, Guilliman didn't read it out of some search for belief, but to learn, to understand, as is his nature. And by the very end of the Dark Imperium trilogy, it's clear Guilliman has come around to the idea that the Emperor has become something more than he was previously. And so for me, this raises several questions. Firstly, will Guilliman truly begin to harness the Imperium's faith in the wars to come? Is he right to deny the Emperor's godhood? And just what are his plans for the Emperor? Will he attempt to resurrect him, heal him in some manner so he can leave the throne? These are integral questions to the future of the Imperium, and discussions we've had to varying degrees over the recent years. But now, as we truly step into the next edition, they once again become extremely important. They are equally intertwined in the future of the Imperium's fate. So today let's begin with the first, will Guilliman finally begin to harness the Imperium's faith in the wars to come? And this is a tough one to answer, as you can feel with every fibre of his being that the religious worship of the Emperor repulses Guilliman on every level. And you can't really blame him for that. As Guilliman himself states several times throughout the lore, he alone has spoken with the Emperor for the past 10,000 years. He heard over and over again during the days of the Great Crusade from the man himself that he was simply human. He was no god. Yes, incredibly powerful, easily the greatest psyker to ever exist, but still no god. Guilliman was instructed in the Emperor's grand plan, the fundamental imperial truth, to rid humanity of its beliefs in gods. It's the very reason he was created, and the reason he is so dismayed upon his return 10,000 years later. Because the Imperium it's become bears no resemblance to the one the Emperor wanted, the one Guilliman and his brothers fought to create. Within Dark Imperium Godblight, after Mortarion's defeat at the hands of the Emperor-possessed Guilliman, who the Emperor healed from the brink of death, Guilliman goes to speak with militant apostolic Matthew on his deathbed, his symbolic ecclesiarchy representative. Now, Matthew himself should have been long dead, inflicted with countless Nurgle plagues, yet he somehow held on, defying the impossible, leaving Guilliman to legitimately question if it was his faith that kept him alive, and to be told in response that it was surely an act of the Emperor. And here, in Matthew's final few words before his passing, he informs Guilliman that the Emperor is once again active in the galaxy, that he is awakening from his slumber, that he is empowered by the faith of the armies fighting in his name, that the Great Rift, despite possibly being the end of the Imperium, is also its only hope, as it has empowered the Emperor. Regardless of Guilliman's belief, the Emperor is the greatest psyker ever, and just as the psychic awakening has empowered psykers all over the galaxy, it empowers the Emperor too. And Matthew finishes by telling Guilliman he needs to help the Emperor step down from the Golden Throne, that the Emperor spent the past thousands of years arranging the pieces so Guilliman might return, and now he has to guide his father's awakening in return. Those would be Matthew's final words, and Guilliman would reaffirm his belief that the Emperor is no god, that it's others who have always done the work for him, as Guilliman has to do now. And initially that comes across as Guilliman rejecting Matthew's notions. However, in the later and final conversation we see Guilliman have, he questions Belisarius Caul's call inferior on if he thinks the Emperor can be returned to life, admitting that the evidence has left him in little doubt that the Emperor is indeed working and moving throughout the galaxy. And this is a topic we have discussed several times over the recent years, as it's by far and away the most important topic for the future of the galaxy. And so this really raises the prospect of Guilliman, despite his objections, contemplating and considering Matthew's final words. And there could be two reasons for this in my mind. One, despite his fears, his beliefs otherwise, the practical evidence is undeniable, and he has to now consider the fact the Emperor returned could well be the best hope the Imperium has for victory. The second is that Guilliman fears this unknown element of the Emperor moving and acting on a plane and in a form he can't truly comprehend. And so he wants to stop it. Returning his father to life, so to speak, could well do that, hopefully returning him to the man Guilliman used to know. Now, if indeed Guilliman does go with the first, if he does accept the inevitability of the evidence and Matthew's words, we could well see him publicly, vocally, tactically, harnessing faith in the Emperor, attempting to heighten and push it to a level that enables the Emperor to truly step down from the Golden Throne. There would be nothing in the galaxy that could fuel a spike and outpouring of faith more than a Primarch spouting the Emperor's divinity, leading a holy crusade. The mere sight of Guilliman is enough to cause an outpouring of faith, let alone him preaching of faith in the God Emperor upon the battlefield. That would quite simply be a level above. And he wouldn't be alone in realizing the benefit faith brings to the Imperium either. There's a moment in the Dawn of Fire series novel The Gate of Bones, where Tribune Colquhoun himself tells another custodian that faith could well be their greatest weapon, and that, like it or not, it's clearly connected to the Emperor in a psychic manner. Perhaps the next stage of Guilliman's campaign could provide the answers we need. His invasion of Imperium Nihilus. Here, more than ever, Guilliman will bear witness to the full atrocities of chaos, the devastation they have wrought upon the Dark Imperium, and yet how faith has enabled so many to still hold out against the dark, to defy the impossible through their faith in him, the God Emperor. Imperium Nihilus could well be the stage we see Guilliman finally decide either way on the topic of the Imperium's faith. And I think we could finally begin to see Guilliman accept his role. With Khorne's rage costing him an entire Indomitus fleet, save those most loyal to the Emperor, not to mention huge populations within the galaxy, I think Guilliman could well hit his point of no return. Now, for all this, however, there is of course another brother once more bestriding the stars. One who is as equally angered by news of what the Imperium's become. Lion L. Johnson. The most anticipated moment in all of the lore right now is their reunion. Honestly, it's something that could be a whole book in itself. And I really hope we get to see a full in-depth conversation between the two. The eradication of the Imperial truth is sure to be a huge talking point for the two, and it'll be incredibly intriguing to see what the Lion's reaction to the Emperor indeed moving and acting out in the galaxy will be. Not just the glimpses we've already seen within the Son of the Forest, but how he reacts to Guilliman being seemingly saved from death and burning the Garden of Nurgle, among the many other things that Guilliman will surely relate to him as well. As much as I want a Lion Emperor reunion, I'm not sure we're going to get it just yet, so he could well be left to simply Guilliman's opinions and testimony, until maybe he figures out the right question to ask the mysterious king in the forest walkways of Caliban, who, as I've said, I feel for sure has to be a representation of the Emperor. I certainly wouldn't expect the Lion to be as upset if he didn't receive a compassionate welcome as Guilliman was, but it's already clear he's equally unhappy at the notion of worship. So it remains to be seen how the lion would react to harnessing or emboldening any so-called faith in their father. Would the lion be more likely to want their father returned to the land of the living through empowerment, as Matthew's final words to Guilliman suggested? Or would the lion be more inclined to want to resurrect their father to eliminate any theoretical godhood? The two possible avenues that Guilliman could well be considering. Whatever the lion's opinion, it'll undoubtedly have a big sway and impact on Roboute. Regardless of their differences over the years, the two are in this together. So, will Guilliman harness faith in the God Emperor as the asset it is? Will he use the best weapon he has against the forces of chaos? Will he seek to heed Matthew's words and empower his father to truly leave the Golden Throne? Or will he continue to deny the faith and worship and seek to revive the Emperor to eliminate the element outside his control, to hopefully bring back the Emperor that was? As always everyone, leave your thoughts in the comments below. With Guilliman clearly accepting the evidence the Emperor is acting in the galaxy, that he has become something more than the man he used to be, with him asking Belisarius's opinion about bringing the Emperor back to life, is this him possibly considering Matthew's final words, that the Emperor needs his help to leave the Golden Throne, to truly be returned to life? Or is this Guilliman considering a way to remove the element outside his control, thinking along the lines of returning the Emperor to life to remove the so-called godhood? And just what bearing do you think the returned lion will have on Guilliman's thinking? Will he see the merit of empowering the Emperor as he is? Or would he seek to try and return the Emperor to the man he was? As always, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.